Range Rover is proud to partner Monocle on Design on Monocle Radio. Every Range Rover is created to elevate leaders' lives with cutting-edge design, connected, refined interiors, and electrified performance. These qualities drive every Range Rover to deliver unrivaled luxury. This vision is inspired by the same values that created this icon 55 years ago. To hear how Range Rover is elevating leaders' lives, tune in to a special season of On Design Extra, in which the Monocle team meet the innovators, trailblazers and design leaders who are inspiring the Range Rover journey. Listen out for those special programmes soon on monocle.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Monocle on Design and Range Rover, elevating leaders' lives.
Is there any object in the home quite like the sofa? This piece of furniture anchors our living spaces, shapes how we gather with family and friends, and influences the rhythm of domestic life. Yet many designers will tell you that creating one is notoriously difficult. So, what makes the sofa so complex to design? And what might designers reveal about the outsized role this unassuming piece of furniture plays in our homes? For the answers, plump the cushions and join us. This is Monocle on Design.
I think sofas are very hard to design. They're generally not about the shape. I mean, obviously it matters, but a sofa is part of the architecture. It's really part of how I live.
You are seated on a piece of furniture that hugs you. It's like wearing something. They totally affect how people look sitting in them.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Monisse. On today's program, a special look at Monocle's new release, Designers on Sofas. We talk to British designer Ilse Crawford on her approach to design and sofa selection, plus US designer Erin Chen of ODA Architecture. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Grace Charlton, tell me about your sofa at home.
Oh, we're going
let's just dive straight in. There's no need to do hello, welcome to today's show. We know the show started. Tell us about your sofa.
My sofa, it's probably the coolest thing that I own, or I guess I should say co-own, because I didn't buy it and my boyfriend did instead. Well, actually, this sofa nearly broke us up. I will put it out there.
This is a juicy start to today's episode.
Because we just couldn't decide on what we wanted. We moved into like an unfurnished flat. It was really exciting. We had a budget to look at.
Potential is endless with an unfurnished flat. I mean, it's so exciting.
Exactly. I know. And I wanted to do it correctly. This was like a big sort of moment of being an adult. And we spent about 6 months arguing over dinner about a sofa.
Well, I think inadvertently, I feel like you've set this up really nicely. There's a few things that you've touched on in the new book published by Monocle called Designers on Sofas. So we're looking at 50 profiles of architects, all sorts of amazing, talented people from Bjarke Engels to Fernanda Canales to Tatiana Bilbao. Incredible people in this book that we profiled and spoke to. A couple of things you hit on that I really like that came out as themes in the book. You talked about what it symbolised. So you talked there a little bit about kind of what the sofa symbolises, this almost putting down of roots. Like you've made the decision you've purchased a flat, you've moved in, you've got to obviously select some furniture that's also going to stand the test of time. And this was kind of like a beautiful emerging theme that came out over and over again with people we spoke to in the book. David Tulstrup, his decision to put his own... this is the other thing I love. We spoke to so many people that design their own sofas that they then put into their own home. So he put his own calm sofa into his place. And it was like a real, I guess, symbolic moment of being like, all right, I'm actually putting down roots. Same with Betty Ng, who was bouncing kind of between all these different rental properties. She's an amazing Hong Kong-based architect. And she ultimately bought her flat, rather. She purchased a Marenko sofa by Arflex, and that was her big decision. I think what makes it so significant is that this is the biggest piece of furniture. It's the most defining piece of furniture that we own. I mean, that is the case in your living room.
It's very hefty and it's big, like physically often a sofa, and it's expensive. So you've got to invest in it and do it correctly. It's also super aspirational, I found, in terms of like how it's very public facing. You know, if you have friends over, they'll come on the sofa. Actually, I don't really let my friends sit on my sofas because I don't really trust them with their dirty shoes and hats.
But hang on, but run us through, because this is coming down to like what makes a good sofa. Like, how is this one you're not allowing people to sit on? Maybe that says more about you than the actual sofa, but you know, you're not allowing people to sit on it. What makes this a good sofa if no one can actually use it?
It's just gorgeous. I love it. It's the Soriana by Tobian Afra Scarpa. It's from 1969. It's really low slung. It has a cool back to it, and we've positioned it so that you can see it as you walk into the room. Honestly, it made me a better person.
And this is kind of what I think is fascinating about this. It's the idea that a piece of furniture can dictate your behaviour, one thing, but also maybe elevate it.
Exactly.
I do want to talk about selecting furniture in terms of, I know you went through rounds and rounds of, I guess, decision-making processes. I mean, talk us through a little bit of that. Are you looking at the history? Are you looking at the story behind the sofas? Because it sounds like you're driven by beauty rather than actual functionality.
Yeah, for sure. And I came up against my lovely boyfriend who would much rather sit on a couch that's really comfortable and ugly. And we just had to find a common ground, which I think we did with the Soriana, because it is comfy and I think it does look cool. What's your sofa?
I think there's this thing where comfort is kind of key. I've got the exact opposite problem, which is we've got a sofa by Loaf, which is a UK brand, super, super sustainably made, all handmade in the UK. There's incredible down cushions, all natural materials, all these sorts of things. But the fact that it's a down sofa means that it does kind of prompt you to get up every 45 minutes. So maybe that's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah. No, it sounds lovely.
It's a nice kind of mid-blue tucked in the corner. I guess it does help divide our living space. We've kind of got the classic open dining room living space, and the sofa kind of tucks in to a corner, which really dictates, hey, here's our leisure area. It does keep kind of circling back round to the book. I think there's also something to be said about the kind of stories behind these sofas. There's kind of multiple things that were happening. We're in a similar, my wife and I are in a similar situation to you, where we're moving into unfurnished flat. We're looking for pieces of furniture that we're going to keep for a long time. We wanted something that was British because we're both foreign, so we wanted a piece of furniture that was made in the UK. That was the one British thing I was going to tolerate in my home and my life at large. I think there's the stories, it's the cultural elements that come in behind it, and that was another thing that kind of came out in this book. One of my favourite profiles in the book of Monocle Designers on Sofas is Keiji Ashizawa, who, another amazing, talented creative who produced his own sofa with Karamuku case. It's called the AS01. But the whole idea was he wanted to look at how Japanese people use their living spaces. This is a tatami mat kind of culture. People spend a lot of time sitting on the floor. The sofa is a relatively new introduction to domestic spaces in Japan. So he created something where you could actually sit on the floor and the height of the sofa seat was the perfect kind of armrest. It's this amazing thing where it's like, okay, yes, you can kind of think that there's not much to a sofa, chuck together a few cushions, a backrest, and you're kind of done. But what his story proved is that there's these cultural layers that kind of come into things. And I think that's really beautiful. And that's why I wanted to ask you about, back to the Soriana. It's like, was there a narrative you were looking for, mid-century Italian design, postmodern design, and why that maybe jumped out at you in terms of your selection?
It's really funny, when we were going through the list of potential sofas, I noticed they were all from the 60s and they were all Italian. This sofa as well has won a Compasso d'Oro, which I think is quite cool. To know that I've got this big design award-winning piece of furniture in my life is quite cool.
I want to jump, you've got an award-winning sofa. I want to jump to a discussion about an award-winning designer who is featured in the book, Ilse Crawford, an amazing London-based creative. Her CV is just so enviable. She started out as the founding editor of Elle Decoration in the UK in the 1989, eventually went on to establish her own London-based design studio, Studio Ilse, in 2001. I mean, that's kind of like the dream career trajectory for me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Are you going to become an interior designer?
Maybe this is it. I'm going to go full circle. I'm going to go from being a designer to being a design editor, then back to being a designer. I mean, this is incredible because what you see in her work is the fact that obviously she's so well versed in interior spaces, and that comes, I guess, from visiting and reporting on so many of these, is what I'm assuming. I've never actually checked that with her. But she's ultimately running, just a sensational design studio. She designed her own sofa, which then went into production with a British maker called George Smith. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about the story behind it. I began by asking her why so many designers want to make chairs. That's often seen as like the benchmark design product.
Yeah, it's weird actually. I feel like sofas are unsung pieces of designs. Like everyone cares about chairs, everyone knows about chairs, but no one really knows about sofas.
Well, this is it. It's the chair is often, I guess, the benchmark for are you a good designer, but I almost think there's an additional complexity to sofas in that there's a heft to them, there's a permanence to them that you don't get in a chair. So let's hear from Ilse now.
I think sofas are very hard to design because they're generally not about the shape. I mean, obviously it matters, but a sofa is a very complex piece. You know, it's large, it's very often heavy. People often don't replace their sofas in 15 years, apparently. I mean, apparently that's the number of years typically that somebody keeps a sofa. So, you know, it's a different animal and it's supposed to do so many things and appeal to so many people. I mean, we can all, in an apartment, pick our own chair, but, you know, a sofa is a communal activity, so it's likely going to accommodate you, any sort of passing dogs, parents, friends, relations, you name it. I mean, it's a challenge.
So then, you know, if you're working on one as a designer, is it I guess, an object that really can embody your approach or your outlook?
I mean, the sofa that we're talking about now, the Ilsa sofa, we didn't start from a blank sheet of paper, quite the opposite. It should actually really be called the Steph sofa, because I used to live in a one-room apartment and my friend Steph used to come and stay quite a lot, and I was very conscious that it was a bit tough for him to sort of, you know, dress, undress, do his thing all in full view. So just thought about how to create essentially what was a room within a room. So it was really working back from how could I design something that fitted in the apartment and didn't sort of take it over, that gave him enough sort of privacy and, you know, comfort to be able to sort of feel at home. But when he wasn't there, you know, actually functioned as a lovely piece of furniture. So, yeah, it started very much from a kind of place of need. Since then, and this was, you know, quite a while ago, it's actually 20 years ago. Since then, that sofa has been refined and refined and refined. So it didn't actually go into production for, I don't know, maybe another 7 or 8 years, I think. I'm not sure.
About another decade, roughly.
Oh, even?
So,
okay, yeah. So we did specify it for projects, so bespoke, but that was great because it gave us a chance to really kind of double down on the dimensions, because it is quite a simple shape for sure, but it's a lot more complex than it looks. So the proportions of arms, the height, the way the upholstery is designed over the edge, because it's got quite a clean front. I didn't want it to be fussy, but actually that's a challenge with upholstery because you can end up with a sharp edge just behind your knee where it hurts. All of those details, the longevity of it and beauty, really.
Maybe as well, and we talked a little bit about this before coming on air, that's what's kind of so remarkable about a sofa is it needs to, and you've already mentioned at the top, because it's such a communal piece of furniture, but you're also trying to balance, there's that detailing, how does it feel when it hits behind the knee? It's like an architecture within an architecture.
I mean, it is mini architecture, which is sort of how we approached our sofa, you know, not so much as a piece of furniture per se, but we always talk about a frame for life. So we feel it's like something that you can live within, like a kind of, in a way. It's more den than it is upholstery. For me, upholstery is the thing that helps us make a comfortable den that appeals to many people. But, you know, you can't appeal to everybody because I think sofas ultimately do break down into different typologies, aesthetics apart. There is a typology which is for people who like to perch, who sit on the edge and cross their legs and ankles look fabulous. And we all know people like that, not loungers. And then there are others who want to lounge. And in my case, I love to sit sideways on a sofa. So, you know, it's lovely for me to be able to sit up against the side and read, or, you know, with a pal at the other end to chat. I'm a sideways sitter by nature. And then, of course, there's the Labrador sofa, which is this big cushy thing that, you know, the English are renowned for. I'm sure there are other typologies, but those three, I think, are the three core starting points.
Did you have that in mind as you were designing Steph? Designing the Ilsa for Steph, because I guess you had a very specific person in mind for this particular design challenge. And yet, as it's kind of, you know, we talk about here, it's now been around for 20 years. It's been in production for at least 10. Like, how did that evolve from a singular person to maybe meeting one of these typologies?
My experience is that the best things in life, and I would say buildings as well, come from a seed rather than a sort of broad concept. I work at least much better that way, and for us that has worked best. That singularity for us is often more universal than something is framed to appeal to everyone. So starting with a very strong seed individual who needed a place to sleep, so it needed to be wide enough for him to sleep on, as well as being not so deep that it would be too big and too roomy to make a successful sofa. So it was a finessing of that dimension, the depth.
A kind of a push and pull.
Yeah, to make sure it was a good dimension.
Well, I guess I was going to ask off the back of that, we're talking about finessing it here, we're talking about dimensionality, but then obviously the actual making of it becomes so important. I mean, you're working with George Smith in Northumberland. How key is the actual maker of a sofa to, I guess, the execution of these kind of ideas that you've got?
And it was funny, the other day we were looking at the products that we've made, it's a hideous word, but anyway, the pieces that we've made with manufacturers over the years. And our best pieces, both in terms of longevity and the sort of longevity of their aesthetic and use, and in terms of the royalties over time, oddly enough, because they might not have sold masses to begin with, but they go on selling over time, which makes it worth the investment that you make in terms of time and making at the beginning. So definitely investing in the future way of looking at making pieces. But anyway, looking at those smaller manufacturers that really dig in and understand the detail and the making are the ones we love to work with and are the ones that we have produced the best pieces with, without question.
You also mentioned, if we're thinking about this in terms of an investment perspective, you were telling me kind of a story or suggesting that if you're not sure about a sofa, even if it's on the other side of the world, fly, go test it, bring the people that are actually going to use it, because it's such a big investment in terms of it's going to hold a place in your life for a long time. So you want to get it right.
I mean, I'm a bit of a kind of one end or the other, but never in the middle when it comes to purchases. So,
I love that philosophy. That's great.
I've bought plenty of things at flea markets and, from IKEA or whatever. But then I think when you're buying something that is going to be with you for a very long time, and sofas, as I said earlier, generally speaking, people don't replace them more often than every 15 years. So that's a commitment. That's longer than most people's relationships. So you do need to, pay attention and think about it and sit on it. It's incredible how many people choose a sofa from an image.
I want to ask you as well, emotional connections to pieces of furniture. How important is, I guess, the story behind something to, I guess, your relationship with it? Do you have fond memories of your own sofa and time spent on it? How key is that to, I guess, your enjoyment and your own experience?
I think it's different for different bits of furniture. So I have some pieces that I'm very sentimental about, and the sofa is certainly one of them because it is part of the architecture. It's really part of how I live. We've talked a lot about what a good sofa is, but I'm sure we've all had experience of sofas that are dodgy. And, what makes a dodgy sofa? And I think they are those ones that sag, basically, where you can feel the spring or you feel the sort of shifting of the foam and the underneath, and and grubby, of course, is another one, And I think we talk a lot about what makes a sofa good, but something that is wrong is really worth avoiding, if possible. Knowing what makes a sofa essentially kind of disintegrate quite rapidly and avoiding it like the plague, because it's such a waste of money and time.
That was Ilse Crawford there. I want to quickly throw it to you, Grace Charlton. You spent a lot of time in sofa showrooms testing out sofas. Should you meet your sofa before you commit? Would you have liked to have maybe had an extended lease on the Soriana before, it became a permanent fixture in your home?
No, again, I really don't care about comfort. I just want it to look good. But yes, this is what my partner forced me to do before we purchased a sofa, which again...
Partner or boyfriend? This is where...
Partner.
I didn't realise you were cowboys or policemen. It's all aesthetic, so that doesn't really matter. But if we are going to talk comfort, what's the worst sofa you've sat on and why?
I think there are these sofas, or I don't know if I could even dignify them with the title sofa, at Milan Linate Airport, which have really low backs and they're always busy and they like curve and they don't sit that many people at the same time, and I just think they're awful.
Where are they as you walk?
Yeah, you know when you walk into that big atrium and then there are the escalators up to that place where we got sushi and margaritas.
I do remember that. Not on the work card, just to be clear. The first house I ever lived in outside of my parents, we had this horrendous green leather sofa that I think we bought off Gumtree, but it had absolutely no support in it. So kind of when you sat into it, your butt would end up below your knees, which made getting out of it incredibly difficult. I think maybe the biggest issue, and we have touched on this as well, is the fact that this hideous green sofa was also defining the living room space. Maybe that's also kind of what prompted this book of Designers on Sofas. It was the idea that this is the most significant piece of furniture that you can own. And what I love about it is it can shape our movement through a home. And that's what Aaron Chen, another architect that features in the book, talked about. He's the founder of New York-based ODA, which is an architecture and urban design firm. He took us into his amazing converted warehouse apartment where the sofa is a piece of architecture in its own right. It kind of sits in the middle of the room. It's the extra soft sofa by Living Devani. So it would tick the boxes for your partner in terms of comfort. It's also kind of this modular piece that faces in multiple directions. They place it in the center of the room, which is it's a bold decision. Anyway, enough of me rambling on this. Let's hear from Aaron Chen now.
You were kind enough to feature in the Monocle Book of Designers on Sofas, letting a photographer into your home, take a photo of you on your extra softs.
Right.
We want to hear a little bit of the story behind the sofa itself. Why? Tell us, maybe first describe the sofa for our listeners, and then tell us why you picked us.
Well, maybe I'll describe the home first, and it would lead us to the sofa. How about that?
I feel like you should be doing my job at this stage.
Just for reference and the scale, it was about 8 years ago that we bought the loft. The loft was basically never lived in, so it was a factory. The entire building was a factory. It was converted into single home sort of apartments, and it was a gut renovation. So it's one of those things you love doing as an architect and designer, design your own place. And the truth of the matter is that the design of the place took me maybe 2 weeks. I knew everything that I wanted. My wife and I disagreed on the bathroom, but other than that, we had full agreement. And then was the sofa. And the sofa, if you look at the pictures, is really the center of our living room. It's a very large scale living room. It's a very large scale sofa. And we knew right from the get-go that we want this to be a modular piece that could be arranged a different way. So the sofa arranges itself to the room and not the other way around. But we had a big dilemma about the color.
So this is the debate. But hang on, before we go into the colour, I want to talk a little bit about. So you're designing the space.
Right.
It's your home. Are you considering the furniture as almost a part of the architecture in that process?
For sure. I mean, so everything we do, regardless if it's a tower or it's an apartment or designing a home for somebody, every aspect of the living component is part of the lifestyle, but also the life of the sort of experience within the space itself. The sofa, like every other piece of furniture, should be part of the experience. And the experience we wanted here is that the seating arrangement at the heart of the space is not the traditional sort of living room setting where it's directional and it's looking to a wall or a fireplace or TV, but rather that it's a free form that sits in the center like an island, and that it's engaged from all directions, so you can do whatever you want to do. The sofa becomes the anchor for the family behavior.
Because I think it's quite fascinating. Yeah, if you look at the visuals of it, or if you're make a bird's eye view of your living room, it really is kind of sitting in the middle.
Right.
And I think so typically we want to push sofas up against walls or pop them into corners and have them facing each other. But really, it's almost like rather than the sofa facing another sofa or a wall or a TV or a fireplace, as you said, it's the sofa faces the room itself on all sides.
It's almost flipping the arrangement on its head.
And why was that important to you?
Well, first of all, it fits the space because the space is quite large. It's almost a 50 by 50 living space. The loft with 14-foot ceiling, so it's a very large space. You could either subdivide it into areas and say, okay, we're going to divide it into a sitting area of what sort, and maybe there's another type of sitting area. Or we looked at it where the sofa is the anchor of the entire space, and it acts in different directions differently. So the side that is facing the kitchen becomes more casual sitting by the kitchen island. The side that is facing the fireplace and the projector is more towards, watching a movie, and the side that is facing the dining room is more conversational. So the sofa becomes much more than just a sitting piece. It actually becomes an architectural piece that anchors the entire behavior around it.
Is this a common theme that kind of runs through the work that you do, I don't want to say dictating behavior, but thinking about how we can create spaces that might influence how we move through them or interact with the other people in the room?
Absolutely. We actually feel that our main goal and our main aim is to create architecture that impact connection, and that the form that we create doesn't follow just the function, but it follows the experience. And the human experience, we believe, or I believe now, it becomes more important than the function itself. We live in an era of technology where everything can come to us, and what traditionally was buildings that serve a function, like a post office or whatever,
A formal warehouse.
a warehouse, those become much more blurred, and we can do many things in many different structures. The question that becomes, I think, much more essential for our lives is now what type of experience we are having while we're doing that function. And so it sounds like a little bit of, a game of words, but in reality, it's designing the human experience rather than just designing the buildings as objects or the interiors for composition or for beauty. Beauty comes as an extraction of the human behavior. And that's true for urban design. We're doing when designing now neighborhoods. And it's true when we build a complex of a couple of buildings and mixed use in the middle of a city. And it's true when we design homes for people. It's really, what's the kind of experience you're going to have, you and your family or people around you or your community, and how the architecture and the interiors and the design supports that fun behavior.
Let's dive into the details of this and how, bringing it back to your sofa, how it might be influencing the behavior as well. Color choice, material choice. If you look at the visuals in the book, it's a big red sofa. For one of, that's the way of looking at it. What was the debate around that?
A traditional sofa is quite limiting if you really think about that. It tells you exactly the direction you're going to sit, the orientation of where you're going to look at, and where traditionally people put a sofa in their living room, wherever, it's a very unflexible piece of furniture. It's very heavy, you can't move it. So it really dictates the orientation, the type of activity, and whatever. What we want to do is build an island that you can sit on, you can stand on, you can lie on, but it is not dictating any type of behavior. It rather gives that flexibility. So that's number one. And the beauty of Living Divani's piece that was actually designed by Piero Lissoni is that it is flexible and it's modular and you can arrange it however you like. The second thing was the depth. And the depth of a sofa really dictates the way you sit, right? Italian sofas are very deep, not super comfortable. There's some others that are stiffer and they're firmer, some are soft. So we have a variety. We have one side that is super deep. We can literally, the only way to do it is to kind of lie down, and some sides that are shorter. And then we have pieces that you can move around and change as a piece of conversation where people are gathered. So you can just take it around and put it on the other side. I mean, comfort for me is number one. There's beautiful fabrics that are just not comfortable to the touch or to the sitting. It's a weave fabric that actually includes 5 different colors. It looks red, but it's really 5 different colors if you look carefully. And so it's not what I would say pure red. It's a very deep Moroccan sort of mix of light blues and golden browns, and it's super soft and super comfortable. The color was debatable. We wanted to have an iconic color because of the way this thing is composed in the entire room. If it was a very light color, it would not hold the type of anchor that it is. Red, of course, is a very kind of controversial, strong color, and that was the debate. Like, I remember my wife...
So there was no debate about whether it was going to be a statement color. It was just, is red the right statement?
Is red the right one? And of course, you get cold feet because you say, well, it doesn't work with every type of wardrobe that people wear, so sometimes it looks weird when guests are coming. Maybe it doesn't work with their... And I was like very insistent, like, it's going to be fun. We're going to go big time. We can always change it. It's been years and years, and everybody loves it, and we love it.
I love the fact that you're also thinking about how people might look on the sofa. Like, that was a key consideration.
It's a key consideration. Actually, people don't think about it that much, but I always do. How would people look sitting on your furniture? And what's the composition between the fabric, the material, and what they wear? Or skin tone, the hair, whatever it is, you are seated on a piece of furniture that hugs you. It's like wearing something. And so when you have pieces of furniture that are very distinct, both in color and shape, they totally affect how people look sitting in them.
That was Erin Chen. Grace Charlton bring us home on this. Who knew that? I didn't realise we could do 40,000 words on sofas, let alone an additional 30 minutes of radio on it. I mean,
I think we could keep going as well. That's what's scary.
It truly. I think this could have been, beefed up with showroom visits. I think there could have been, a little bit of testing. Maybe there's a part 2 coming.
The history of sofas, which there is an essay in the book. And by the way, I read it and I just thought, surely people have needed sofas or wanted to just lounge around since the time of the Neanderthals. Also, did you know the word couch comes from the French word coucher, which means to lie down, as in voulez-vous coucher avec moi, the 2001 hit sensation, Lady Marmalade.
What's your favourite sofa in the new Monocle book?
I really loved Thomas Hildebrand's DS80 sofa by De Sede, a Swiss manufacturing company. They're really famous for their terrace one, the one that's really crazy and it looks like a landscape sort of rolling up and down. And what is your favourite sofa?
Maybe not necessarily my favourite sofa, but my favourite story is the Daniel Libeskind one. That really speak to me. The Big C sofa by Pierre Paulin, kind of magnificent re-edition by Louis Vuitton. Daniel saw it at Design Miami. So this is an exhibition of archival work by Pierre Paulin. It was looking at kind of all these pieces that had kind of fallen by the wayside, either never went into production or had gone out of production. He walked into this exhibition in the morning, was like, that's magnificent, came back in the afternoon, couldn't believe that it hadn't sold yet and purchased it on the spot without giving a thought for how he would fit it into his Manhattan apartment. This is an enormous, it's like a 5-meter long sofa. He had to get rid of all his other furniture to fit this sofa in. That was how much he loved it. And I think, to me, that's almost admirable in terms of he found something that spoke to him so deeply that he was like, I'm chucking everything else out. And I kind of admire that.
5 meters. That's
huge
insane.
Sofa. Imagine trying to get that up into a Manhattan apartment. I think that I could be wrong, but I feel like they had to crane it in. That's the story I keep telling myself.
Wow.
But it's a beautiful piece of furniture that also lets his whole kind of family, I mean, you would hate this, but his whole family can sit down along the length of it, spend time together, really connect. I know not your thing, but it kind of speaks to me a little bit.
Okay, well, that's inspirational and an inspirational note to perhaps end the show on.
A little bit passive-aggressive maybe, but that is all for today's show. For more design stories, pick up a copy of Monocle magazine and a copy of Designers on Sofas. Today's episode was produced and edited by Hassan Anderson and Elliot Greenfield with help from Steph Chungu. I'm Nick Monisse.
I'm Grace Charlton.
Thanks for listening.